Hello everybody and welcome back. This is the introduction to Module 2, which is all about composition. And before we dive in, I'm sure you've probably already noticed that the composition module is shorter than the lighting module as far as how many videos are in the module. However, this module is still packed with just as much information as the lighting module, if not more. The video lesson is significantly longer. So feel free to go back, rewatch these videos, touch on anything that you feel like you didn't get a good grasp of. And as always, don't forget to download that resource sheet because I'm going to give you the entire outline of these videos. And I'm also going to include some templates that I think are going to be really, really helpful for you. So right now you're watching the intro to composition video. So let's quickly go over the 3 videos that are inside of this module. So intro to composition, obviously that's where you are right now. Then you're going to move on to camera angles. And like I said in the introduction, this is what I get the most questions about. So I'm going to touch on the 3 main camera angles that I think will be the best for you. And 90% of the time, they're the camera angles that I use. So I know that you'll get a lot of use out of those. And lastly, we're going to have our composition video lesson. And in this particular video lesson, we're going to do a single shoot of a single food item, but we're going to hit all of the camera angles. So just like we did in the lighting video lesson, I showed you both hard light and soft light in both side light and backlight positions. I'm going to go through all 3 of the camera angles with a single food item. So I will show you how to get a wide variety of images from just one single shoot. And that's going to be incredibly helpful for you in figuring out exactly the look that you like, the camera angle that you like, the lighting that you like. This is all a process, and I hope that you enjoy it along the way. So composition in particular is incredibly crucial when it comes to creating the images for your social media and just your images in general for promotional purposes, because what you're doing with the composition is you're guiding the viewer's eye to what you want them to see. And if you have this amazing food item, obviously that's what you want them to be looking at first and foremost. So let's dive in and look at this picture really quick, and we will talk about the composition techniques that are used here. So to be fair, there are a lot of composition techniques going on in this particular image, a lot to dive into, but we're going to go to the basics of just the general composition of it. So this is an image of chocolate gingerbread cookies, and your eye is immediately drawn to that cute little gingerbread man right there on the plate. And he's not in the image of the shot. However, he is the focal point and he is the star of the show. So why is that? So the particular composition technique that I use for this image is called the rule of thirds. So with the rule of thirds, the image is broken down into a 3x3 grid. So there are 9 sections and 4 intersections. And the main goal of using the rule of thirds is to put your focal point at one of those 4 intersections. So as you can see, I have put that cute little gingerbread man's face right over the bottom left intersection of that rule of thirds grid. And there are so many composition techniques, so many. And feel free to research them. If this is a particular topic that you're really into and you love it and it fits your style, I encourage you to do your own research and find all of the composition grids that you can, try them out, see what you like most. We're just going to hit on the 3 that I think will benefit the vast majority of people. So we already touched on the rule of thirds. Again, this is your 3x3 grid with 4 intersections. This is going to be your catch-all general purpose composition technique for the majority of your pictures, I would say. You could probably get away with using the rule of thirds forever. You can center something perfectly if you have a single food item. If you have multiple food items on various plates, you can set it up in a rule of thirds within the rule of thirds, and it will work great. So it's a great all-purpose composition. So next I want to touch on dynamic symmetry. You may also hear people refer to this particular composition as diagonal lines. So with dynamic symmetry, there are multiple diagonal lines that are crossing the image. And now I want to point out something specific with this shot that you may have already noticed, which I think is really important when it comes to using composition in general. So as you can see, there are items that are along the lines, and there is that one cookie that is on an intersection or near an intersection. However, there are also props and cookies within the image that aren't on a line and that aren't on an intersection. And this is fine. I think whenever you're using a composition grid, what's really important to focus on is that you're trying to create a focal point for your image, but you don't want it to look unnatural and you don't want it to look cluttered. If you are forcing a composition, you're trying to get something on every single line at every single intersection, it's probably going to look really cluttered. It's probably going to look unnatural, and that's not really what you're going for. So keep that in mind. Let yourself have some creative play, and don't stick too stringently to a composition grid. You can use a few of the focal points, a few of the intersections, and a few of the lines to guide how you place particular items within the frame. That's perfectly fine, and that's exactly what you should be using it for. But don't feel like you have to have everything lined up perfectly and that you have to have everything on a specific line. So the last composition technique that I want to go over is called the golden triangle. And this is very similar in concept to the golden ratio, that swirl, if you know what I'm talking about. So with the golden triangle, there are those two main intersections or two main cross points, and there's a line that goes diagonally across the frame. Now again, just like with dynamic symmetry, I have the cookies that are set up in the center, so that kind of helps keep them the focal point. If something is centered, obviously it makes it an easy draw for the eye. But there are things that are on the lines and there are some things that are not on the lines, and that's perfectly fine. I think that when it comes to crafting an image, once you get used to these composition techniques, you'll be able to formulate an image and compose an image without the use of a grid. You will just have an idea of what you're going for and you'll be able to lay it out. And of course, because you're doing it by eye and not over a specific grid, things are going to be a little off, and that's absolutely fine. The fact that it looks natural and that it looks like a well-composed image is more important than having everything perfectly on a line. Again, we don't want this to look too harsh or too forced at all. So in order to help you get a better grasp of these particular composition techniques, I'm going to put some grids for you in your resource sheet. So feel free to take these, print out this sheet, or you can sketch these out by hand on a blank piece of paper if you want to. And before you go into your next shoot, try to sketch out how you want the shot to look, how you want to lay everything out. And that might be really helpful for you before you even start your next shoot. If you're not ready to take the pictures yet, maybe it's the day before, maybe it's even the week before, you know what you need to take pictures of, you know what's on the plan, you can sit down, you can sketch out a general idea of how you want it to look. So when you step into that shoot, you're partially prepared already, and you know how you want to go about composing that shot. And again, don't take this so seriously and so strictly that it becomes uncomfortable for you or it becomes too challenging for you. And especially don't feel like you have to stick to it to the point that this is no longer fun for you. Because the whole point of this entire course is not only do I want you to be able to create high quality images of your food on your own, but I also want you to enjoy doing this. I want you to enjoy every aspect of your business. And I know that taking pictures and posting to social media and creating that community and having good quality images of the food that you produce is really important for your business. And I want you to enjoy that just as much as you enjoy creating the food and serving the food and running the other aspects of your business. So now that we've touched on some really important composition techniques, let's jump into my most asked about topic of all time, which is camera angles.